if you were to ask me right now, what's in this video for you and why would you have to watch it? Then first off, you do not have to watch it. This video is definitely not for everyone. And I know that many tourists travel Cappadocia like this. Rent a dress, hire a photographer, quickly book a balloon ride, reserve 3 nights in a cave hotel, ride a horse, take some tours, and then about 700 pictures plus $3,000 later, it's time to leave. It is totally okay to only travel for photos. And if you also want to do this, then knowing why is there hot air balloons or how was such incredible landscape created really won't help you. But if you are still watching, then know that in the next 15 minutes I will do my best to tell and visualize the whole story of Cappadocia and try to show you the real face of this region beyond the hot air balloons. To really help you understand and appreciate Cappadocia better, we have to start our journey a few years back in history. Or well, few years might be an underestimation, since our journey today starts about 25 million years ago. You would be surprised to know that life back then was not so different from what we know today. There was forests, mammals, bugs, and even animals that looked exactly as they do today. The one big difference though was that there was no cities or any other indication of big groups of humans. But if we look more closely at Cappadocia, then this exact place was quite different from our present. Tranquility and silence of the valleys today could hardly be imagined back then, since Cappadocia used to be a land of volcanoes. You might have heard how continents and tectonic plates move in time, and in Turkey 3 of them met. The thing is, when such plates ram into each other, they create tensions in Earth. And for Cappadocia, it meant more than 10 million years of volcanic eruptions. It must have been a horrible place to live. Hot ashes would fall from the skies, and at times, sun could not be seen for years due to the clouds of volcanic dust. But just as Lennart Meri, the second president of Estonia, once said, a shitty situation like this can only be a fertilizer for a better future. And this is exactly what happened here. One by one, the volcanoes stopped erupting, and they left behind a landscape made out of layers of volcanic dust. In time, it turned into rock, and now we call it tuff. It was a canvas waiting for an artist, and the artist came. For the next 10 million years, Mother Nature worked miracles on the soft volcanic rock. Its paintbrush was erosion, and instead of colors, she used water and wind. Rivers that came and went, left behind valleys, and every raindrop, combined with gusts of wind, helped to create thousands of statues, what we now know as fairy chimneys. It is quite incredible what wind and water alone can do if given enough time. As time passed, the memory of violent volcanoes faded, and life started returning to Cappadocia. The sound of hooves echoing against the ground used to be a common thing here. Herds of wild horses roamed the Anatolian steppe. But life did not limit itself to stay only above the ground. And to this day, when hiking the Cappadocian valleys, most of the ground looks like a Swiss cheese. It is full of holes and dens made by various animals. And some of the most impressive tunnel systems are actually made by the smallest of inhabitants. Small rodents like rats and mice have carved magnificent tunnel systems running for tens, if not hundreds of meters below the surface. They're like cities with multiple entrances and secret tunnels to escape unwanted visitors. Oh, and if you're not a huge fan of rodents, then not to worry. I only wanted to tell you about them because those small mice actually played an important role in Cappadocian human history, which now brings us to the next chapter in the story of this land. Humans. Well, this part of the video starts to unroll itself in a time that is much more understandable for us. The year is about 3000 before Christ, and the land around us looks quite like it does today, with a simple difference that the hills and rock formations have not yet been carved into rooms by us, humans. I'm sure that by this time, 5000 years ago, many hunter-gatherer tribes had gone through this land, but what made this specific time special was the fact that agriculture was becoming more important for human species, and once some tribes discovered that mud and clay near Avanos mountain could easily be shaped into tools, they decided to stay. To this day, Avanos is famous for its red mud and clay. The streets are filled with pottery shops, and this ancient art is passed down from father to son through generations. For us tourists, it was just fun to try out this ancient tradition ourselves. Pottery helped humans in many ways. For example, it was used, and still is, used in cooking. Testi kebab, or pottery kebab in English, can be found in many restaurants near Avanos. The lamb meat in the clay pot is cooked on live fire for about 4 hours, and in such long time the flavors have mixed and created an incredible food experience. For us, pottery kebab is one of the best things we have ever eaten. Of course, pottery was also needed to store Cappadocia's most famous product. The climate here is perfect for growing grapes, and wine in Cappadocia has been made for thousands of years. Suitable land for agriculture and pottery helped us humans settle here. We learned from the animals and also started to carve houses into brittle, volcanic tuff. Homes made in such manner are perfect for Cappadocian environment. They keep cool in the summertime and stay warm in the winter. It's like a central heating system. In the next millennia, kingdoms rose and fell in Cappadocia as it earned its place on the map. Greek writings from that time period say that in this place houses could be mistaken with water wells, as a small hole in the ground could turn into a tunnel system that could fit thousands of people. There are many underground cities here. Biggest one fitting nearly 20,000 people, plus their livestock. Those cities were often used to escape the horrors of war. And if this kind of system sounds familiar, then I'm 99% sure that we humans learned this trick from the mice that also hide themselves in tunnels when danger appears. Around 6th century before Christ, Persians first used the name Cappadocia. Nowadays, many claim that it means the land of beautiful horses. And it would make sense, since there was a lot of wild horses here. But if you compare the words Kataputka, which means land of beautiful horses in Persian, and Cappadocia, then they really are not that similar. And it more looks like a good advertising trick than the whole truth. But whatever it means, the name stuck. After another 1,000 years of digging holes and making good wine, something unexpected happened. Between the year 400 and 1000 AD, Cappadocia became a refuge for early Christians. Many of their temples, carved into stone, can still be seen in the open-air museums. And I have to say that the colored frescoes seen in the churches still look amazing today, over 1,000 years later. The only thing that made us sad was to see that some of the faces of the saints had been destroyed and scratched off. I don't believe that any god would make its followers destroy art and beauty like this. But I guess this is just how the world works. People commit crimes of hate and envy in the name of God, representing love and compassion. Around the year 1300, a new chapter started again. Ottomans took over Cappadocia. And that is the time when caves around the region became more noticeable. Ottomans had a strong enough army so they could face the intruders instead of hiding from them. And so this is the time when big castles of Cappadocia were created. They literally carved a whole citadel into a mountain, which today offers amazing 360-degree views over the region. When it comes to the early Christians, then most of them actually stayed in Cappadocia, even through Ottoman times. In Ottoman Empire, different religions were allowed, and I'm sure they had to pay tax to the new rulers. Then most of them could keep their cave houses. I'm sure Ottomans themselves were very happy to take advantage of the alcohol making skills Christians had acquired here in thousands of years. And I know some of you must be thinking that I am telling lies and Ottomans were good Muslims and they never touched alcohol. But the thing is that it's not exactly true. Yes, Ottomans were Muslims, but alcohol was allowed in the empire. And in many regions, Quran was interpreted so that only wine was the alcohol that was off the limits. And this small thing is probably the reason why even today Turkish rakı is the most popular alcoholic drink in this country. So yeah, rakı was allowed. Such times of tranquility lasted about 500 years, until the year of 1923. Ottoman Empire had fallen, and in the minority swap with Greece, most Cappadocian Christians were sent to Greece as most Greek Muslims came back to Turkey. For the next 30 years, few caves still had people living in them, until around the year 1950, when they were asked and helped to move out of the caves due to the deadly cave-ins that had been happening in recent years. And so in 1950s it seemed that the time of Cappadocia was over. In the last 3,000 years, there hadn't been a moment with so little people living here, and the rooms that were once filled with laughter and joy had fallen silent. In the next 40 years after the 50s, once again something extraordinary happened. There was no big wars in the world, and new means of transportation made traveling easier for everybody. First time in human history, tourism became possible for the masses. Millions of people started traveling just because of the fun of it. And such an interesting place like Cappadocia was not overlooked. Tourists visited its incredible valleys and learned about its interesting history. Some ancient homes were even turned into hotels to create authentic experiences for the visitors. But it still wasn't enough to make Cappadocia world famous. It was too far from everything else and too specific to attract huge amounts of tourists. And that's how it was until 1984, when once again everything was about to change. In '84, a cassette tape company called Rax used hot air balloons as marketing strategy. In Estonian language we have a saying that if something suits really well, then it fits like a fist in an eye socket. And this is exactly what happened. Everyone involved loved the sight of hot air balloons in Cappadocian landscape. And the sight from above was even more amazing. Pilots were trained, balloons purchased, and in 1991, first touristic flights began. Since then, over 25 companies and more than 200 balloons take flight every morning. And in the last 30 years, balloons have become the #1 symbol of Cappadocia. But even after all of this, there was still one thing missing to make Cappadocia one of the most popular tourist destinations in the whole world. The last missing piece was social media. We all know that about 10 years ago, something happened in our society that changed the world forever. There are now billions of people who want to post beautiful pictures of themselves online. And if before Cappadocia was a place for visitors interested in history and culture, then now it attracts pretty much every person alive. And due to its beautiful landscapes and amazing opportunities for taking pictures, millions of tourists visit this region every year. And tens of millions have it in their bucket list. As a tourist myself, I'm not the right person to say if the hordes of people have been good or bad for Cappadocia. But one thing is for sure. In my 8 years of traveling the world, that place here, without a doubt, is one of the most incredible I have ever seen. And from the bottom of my heart, I hope that you learned something new from this video, so that now you can appreciate Cappadocia for a little bit more than just the balloons. And as the last thing, make sure to check out this video, as it is created with a sole purpose to help you have the best experience possible while you are visiting Cappadocia. Friends, thank you so much for watching today's video, and we hope to see you again on the next one as we continue our journey south. Take care and bye.
Safe journey, bro.